We're facing a very important decision about whether or not to welcome a casino into our community.
The casinos have created a pervasive gambling culture in southeastern Connecticut. They've skewed our economy there sharply toward low-paying service jobs. These are largely minimum wage and nearly minimum wage jobs. And they've been followed by a sharp spike in the number of Connecticut residents seeking treatment for gambling addiction. Traffic overwhelmed our local roads. Drunk driving arrests in nearby Norwich more than doubled. And the annual number of calls to the Little Ledyard's Police Department more than quadrupled.
Is it a best use? We have this very large piece of land, one of the largest pieces of land sort of under development perhaps in the whole city.
It's a tax. It really is, as you said, a tax on the poor.
Did the promises really pan out? One of the places we looked at was Atlantic City. In Atlantic City, jobs were promised, local economic development, similar to what's been promised here, that the local stores, restaurants, etc., would benefit by the spin-offs from this development. So we looked there. After these casinos came, dozens of restaurants closed, other stores closed. The only businesses that expanded, and this is all on record, so if you don't believe this, all you have to do is look at the record. The only businesses that expanded were pawn shops.
The big thing is, what happens to these jobs as the competition mounts and saturation at casinos takes place? Well, if you look at Connecticut, what is happening is the casinos are laying off. And more importantly, what they're doing is changing the nature of the jobs, and that they're letting go more and more people and then hiring them back as part-time workers for a fraction of what they paid them as full-time workers, and they're cutting their benefits.
Let me show you for a second the future. Here it is. This is the future. It's called technology. In South Boston, they're building an innovation district. They're building an innovation district in South Boston now as we speak to attract people in the technology sector to grow jobs. Good jobs that embrace the future. The future is not in low-wage, dead-end jobs.
You heard about the $8 million in subsidies to keep workers at casinos? They're talking about the same thing in Indiana. They're talking about it in New Jersey. They're talking about it in Illinois and other states.
Here is how much would it cost to fix the 1A corridor to Revere?
A lot more than $45 million. And you laugh because you know the answer as well as I do. Here's the thing. And I have written about the Suffolk Downs transportation plan a year ago. It insults my intelligence as a person who's been involved in transportation planning for most of my adult life. It's a flyover. They say they'll build the flyover. By the way, they don't say they'll maintain the flyover. Right? You are taxpayers. Let me in you on a secret. You're maintaining it. That's coming out of your pocket, your children's pocket, and their children's pocket. And I know from experience that it's much more expensive to maintain it than to build it. More traffic means more environmental pollution, means more asthma for our children, means more cardiac health risks for our adult seniors. More traffic means less safety on the streets so kids can't cross the streets safely. More traffic means more accidents, means your auto insurance is going up. Those are not theoretical impacts. East Boston right now has some of the highest auto insurance rates in the state because of the traffic at the airport and other uses of traffic. I have objected strongly to the complete lack of public transportation improvements in the Suffolk Downs plan. They're talking about $3 million to improve one station. What we need to have for East Boston's growth is the blue line connected to Lynn and the blue line connected to the red line. Now, if you've ever been to Lynn, their plan is built basically on making East Boston one big interstate highway system. That's not good for property values, it's not good for your health, it's not good for your future. And no one's going to make up the loss of your property value.
You know, they're describing 4,000 jobs at $42,000 a year. I have 25 years experience in the hospitality industry, and I'll tell you that there is no institution, no one business that can say that they provide across the board, top to bottom, $42,000 a year for hospitality industry. We're talking about minimum wage.
One of the first things we did in our study of the economic impacts was to talk to some casino executives about what they saw as the future in terms of the economics of casino development. And here's what one of the executives told me. He said, what we really see as the future of this industry is slot machines. And one of the reasons why we see it as the future is the slot machine shows up every day and they never go out on strike.
They use words like best efforts and substantial. And that's by design, because the second that they sign this agreement and the second that they are awarded a license, the very next day, their very next action will be to start peeling back these promises. And I think
now, if you notice, if you've spent any time in casinos, and I've spent a lot of time in them, I have to say I'm a gambler myself. I don't want people to think I have a moral objection. I was only interested in the economic impacts. And I don't play at slot machines. I don't advise you to play at a machine that's programmed for you to lose. If you're thinking about this as a growth industry, forget about it. If you're looking for growth industries, you heard some of them. And Massachusetts, actually, you happen to live in a state that's one of the best states in terms of the growth of future industries. Look at, technology, biotechnology, look at medical industry, look at education industry.
And so if you look at where a lot of things are happening, the future is something called transit-oriented development. And this is basically encouraging development. This is a global movement. It's happening nationally as well, to develop areas around existing transit stops. And in fact, not only existing ones, but augmenting the systems that are already in place. So for instance, in our own backyard, there's some fantastic examples. There's one called North Point. It's basically when you're coming into the city on I-93 heading southbound, sort of between there, it's right at Lechmere Station. That station's going to be rebuilt when the Green Line's extended in the near future. And this is a project that, just to give you a sense of scale, Suffolk Downs is 161 acres. It's an absolutely massive site. This is 45 acres. Suffolk Downs is investing $1 billion in their 161 acres. At North Point, $2 billion in 45 acres, a parcel that's 3.5 times smaller. We've got 2 T stations. They have 1. So, and they're existing T stations. So I think there's an amazing potential. And they talk about jobs as a big issue. Well, Assembly Row is a development happening right now in Somerville. It's right behind the Home Depot and Sports Authority. I'm sure a lot of people have been there. It's 55 acres, so it's about a third the size. 9,700 new jobs, 590 retained, 10,000 construction jobs, a 12-screen movie theater, restaurants, Legoland, which is pretty cool. All these types of things. These are much better uses, things that benefit the community. So when you're talking about a parcel of land that size, with easy access to downtown from 2 T stations, a highway, and close proximity to the airport, it's much better. And then
The congressional study found that when you put a casino into a community, you double the rate of local problem gambling within a 50-mile radius of the casino.
And then the last thing I want to sort of touch on is, if you build a community there instead of a destination, the people who live there are not necessarily added traffic in the same way, because they're not just driving through your community. They live there. They're going to use the T stations to go downtown. And I find it highly suspect to think that the T stations are going to bring many people to the casinos. The casino itself, if you just look at its plan, faces the highway. There's a reason. They know where people are going to be coming from. So I think we want to lessen the impact of traffic and all the pollution. You create a new neighborhood, because the people who move there will have their own invested interest in making it a great place.
In your experience, how much have property values decreased since casinos have opened in Connecticut?
Well, the casinos have been open now for 20 years, so we've had several cycles of real estate But initially, when the casinos opened, and there were no formal studies, but I can tell you that in my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods, real estate values, residential real estate values were down about 20%.
The answer is that the Suffolk Downs site should be a generator for economic growth and development for East Boston in a way that is congenial to a community of people who want to live here and raise children here and die here because they love this place. This is not a black and white circumstance where it has to be something that's going to drain and sap the lifeblood out of you or nothing, right? That's the kind of thinking that gets people to make wrong decisions based out of panic and fear. And I think what you all need to do is change the conversation and try to convince the people who own Suffolk Downs that instead of spending $200,000, $300,000 on lawyers and lobbyists, they should spend that money trying to figure out what these two gentlemen have talked about, how to attract private sector investment capital, the kind of people who are investing in Kendall Square in Cambridge and the South Boston waterfront and Allston, Brighton, as we speak, and bring those people here, because I'll tell you, there are lots of creative people in a community where we have MIT and Harvard that will figure out in 2 seconds how to make Suffolk Downs work, not just for them, but for you.
North Point, which would be at Lechmere Station. Lechmere is actually going to be wholesale plucked and moved across the street. Brand new T station again. The developers are contributing. New Balance, I don't know if any of you see that coming in on the pike every day. Brand new commuter rail station that they will not only build but maintain, I think, for about a decade, which is, speaking to that, the maintenance is the hard part. To think that no one else will provide anything is absurd.
I don't have an objection to the casino from a moral perspective. I have relatives who gamble. I mean, that's their business. The moral issue I have is not telling people the truth.